Good morning from my studio, and I'm working on a basic drawing for you this morning, and it's of a geranium. Mainly I'm interested in working on the leaf patterns, and these are the materials that I'm using. It's a variety of pencils, and I have a charcoal pencil, also a small little tortillon or blender, and a white charcoal pencil. And that's basically all you need. The paper I'm working on is a pastel paper made by Canson, and it's called Meteon. I like working on a toned paper because that gives you a medium gray tone. So the first thing I'm going to do is explain what we have here. This is part of the drawing that has already been developed, but I'm still continuing to develop it. As you can see, I have different areas that are shaded and other areas that pick up the light. This is kind of a unique light situation because we have the natural light coming from the window from the top left, and also I have a top light which will enable you to see the drawing a little better. So we have two different light sources, which is a little bit challenging. And the idea with this drawing is to go over the entire surface in terms of finding the forms and how they relate to each other. If I were to just stay in this area and then just go to this area and this area, it would be harder in terms of developing the flow of the drawing. Normally, I would not put this much effort into this top area, but for the sake of the video, I thought it would be nice to have a place that is more developed. So the idea is to relate all of the forms within the composition. And if you can see, there are these directional lines that lead your eye in and out of the space. And I like that idea. It's something that I always hope to keep in the finished drawing. And in that way, you feel the process of the drawing. And it's not just let me try to copy this as perfectly as possible with as much detail as possible. That's really not my goal. My goal is to give a general impression of what I'm looking at, and also to find some kind of rhythm and artistic flow through the whole form. So let's start off with an area here, which is starting to be sketched in. And again, try to see just the big forms first. I like to start with angles so that you don't get locked into a shape too soon. It's very tempting to get locked into these shapes. And as you can see, this section here is so complicated. If you don't break it down into simple forms, it's just very challenging. So I try to see it just as basic shapes first, as many shapes as I deem necessary to describe what I'm looking at. And this is a 2B pencil, so it's fairly light. I can make lots of mistakes if I need to, and I'm sure I will. And they'll be easily erased with a kneaded eraser. I do very little erasing. What I use the eraser for is to pick up lights. I tend to just incorporate the extra lines into the drawing. So I'm trying to carve out some of the contours, but still not getting into any real detail, keeping it very basic. Okay, so I somewhat have an idea of what this is going to look like, and I might include this leaf over here too. So we have this nice flow from the top to the bottom and out again. It's always nice to have a place to enter the drawing, go through the drawing, and up and out again. So now I'll turn my attention to the left side. Again, keeping very simple shapes. Not really paying too much attention right now to light and dark patterns. I'm just trying to get basic overall outside shapes, contours. Some people call them envelopes. Okay, moving down this way a little bit more. And I probably won't deal too much with the pot because you really can't see it that much, but I do like to suggest where that plane is. This is a frontal plane here, so I'll at least suggest it. So let's pick one area to develop, and I think it'll be this leaf right here. So we have a nice triangle shape within another shape here, coming down. There's another shape here. You can decide how much or how little information you want to put in, and I like to think of detail more as information instead of just surface detail. If your only intention is to replicate surface detail, I think the drawing becomes somewhat mundane. Okay, now the light's coming from the left onto this form here. So first I'll go for some of the middle tones, and notice how my pencil is moving with the shape of the form. And I like to hold my pencil this way rather than this way, the way you would write. Gives you a little more flexibility. Draw with your arm, not just your wrist. Let's get some of this dark area behind the leaf. And I'm going to wait to the very last moment to add any of the white highlights, which I'm really anxious to put in, but I will first try to develop the middle tones. And notice that I'm not blending, I'm just overlaying hatch marks. These are called hatch marks. And you can go from light hatching to very dark hatching very easily. Some people like to keep their marks uniform. I like to kind of mix them up a little. So I'll just continue to do this until I get to the point where I just can't deal with another tone until I have that very, very light. So I see an area where I'm going to switch now to a darker charcoal pencil to get some of the dark accents. I'm thinking light and dark now. I have the basic form of the leaf there. So now I'm carving out just like a sculptor would. You push in to get the dark crevices, and then you let the form come out. I think using the analogy of a sculptor is a very good thing when you draw. Now this is an example of how you might want to use your tortillon or a blender. You very lightly, don't get too dark at first, blend the dark in. In the Beaux-Arts academies, they would work on these types of drawings for hours and hours and hours, blending and overdrawing and continuing to blend again. It's a laborious process when you draw this way, but the results are very beautiful. Okay, I can almost start to put in some of that lighter light, but I still want to carve out more dark here. And some of the detail, not getting too bogged down into it yet. And if you get too dark, you can use your kneaded eraser. Don't rub it too hard, just push and pull. See how it pulled off a tone? Push and pull, push and pull. The idea is not to distress the paper too much. That's why it's important to use a very good quality paper. For years as a student, I actually worked on meat wrapping paper because I couldn't afford to buy large sheets of paper. And it was important to be able to learn how to draw very large drawings, especially if you were in Abby Sanjayama's class. That was one of the requirements, which was very good because it got you away from this little tiny kind of drawing. It made you think about large forms. And this paper, as I said before, is a very good pastel paper, and it can take a lot of erasures. Okay, so I think I'm just about ready to add the white, which will accent the high value of the light coming from the left. Get just a little bit more dark here. And this is very dark to the left, so I'm going to put in, you can also use Vine charcoal for this, but I'm just going to continue with this tool here, which happens to be a Derwent sketching pencil. I'm not sure where it even came from, but it's working very nicely. You can use pencil first and charcoal on top, but not in reverse. The pencil, the lead graphite, will not go on top of charcoal, but you can put charcoal on top of the lead. Okay, so let's see if I can get this form here. And again, I'm following the form of the leaf. So the light's coming from the left. I'm going to carve out a little bit more on the bottom. And I can already see that this pencil probably will not go too much darker. So I'm going to switch to a charcoal pencil. You don't want to press the lead too hard because you end up getting a shiny tone. You want to keep everything very light. Now this is, it's a hard. You don't want to use a hard charcoal. A hard charcoal will not cover as well. Let's see if I can find, oh, I can't find my other charcoal at this moment, so I'll just make do. Oh, here we go. It's in my hand. There we go. Now that's a nice rich dark. This is the fun part. And notice when you go on top of this layer, you just very gently, I like to keep the integrity of the mark and also the paper. I don't like to obliterate it completely. Follow some of this area. Wow, this is really complicated over here. So I'm going to have to go back to my basic shape drawing again. Anybody can make a very basic shape. I really think anyone can draw. You just have to use your eyes, develop eye-hand coordination. Here's another leaf. And it's really important to keep that flow. And you can do cross hatching. This is called cross hatching. You have a vertical mark against a diagonal mark. If you look at Leonardo da Vinci's hatching, he's left-handed, so most of his marks go this way. Sometimes you just might not want to say everything with detail. You might just want to suggest it with a little bit of tone here, a little bit of value there, and let your eye finish the drawing. So I hope you enjoyed this little demonstration, and if you would like to know more about my work, please visit my art blog, JaninePainter.com, and my website, JanineSankoMartin.com. Thank you.